Roundtable with Manuel. I am your host, Larry Ellis, and my co-host, my brother from another, my serial stealing brother from another.
Bring back those old days.
Yes, it do. Yes, it do. So if Dr. Bradley is not in your sight at 8:00, you know our guest has arrived, and so has the food. So just saying, folks, heads up.
Well, brother, it is what it is. There's no shame to my game.
No, I will be on my own for a few minutes while he makes sure that the food is safe for the rest of us.
You know what, brother? I'll be over there.
Thinking about me,
thinking about you, clapping you on. And just look at me as the advanced team.
Oh,
good point.
Well, good point. I appreciate that. I was just thinking, it's as a former president of association, the president always has an advanced team, right?
Gotta have an advanced team.
Has to test the food to make sure that it's safe.
That's right. The coffee and all that stuff. So I'll be off the air and I'll be off the set.
He's too good to us past the house, right? We'll be holding it down while Dr. Bradley. We'll be holding it down while Dr. Bradley is putting it down.
That's right, brother. That's right. I'll be giving you thumbs up, a thumbs up. Try this, try that.
Try that. Oh, yeah. I recommend this. We give it a 7.
Yeah, exactly. The rating will be 1 to 10.
1 to 10.
Okay. So I give it to you in the fingers.
Yeah, but by the time you get to the 10, will there be any left?
It may be a bite or so.
That's our concern.
Bite or two.
I told him, we were just talking off the air. It was like, Dr. Bradley reminds us of, the family member when you come downstairs on a Saturday morning, they sitting there with the big old Tupperware bowl and the cereal box is empty.
Full of cornflakes.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So who ate the last of the cereal?
Ooh, I love those Raisin Bran.
Wasn't me. I'm like, you using a mixing bowl to eat your cereal? That's how we do it around here.
Yeah, you got the mixing bowl over here. You got the powdered milk over there with the water just dripping off the sink. Man, I'm going back.
That would be. It's funny because Jamal had me cracking up the other day. He was a little under the weather, but he was like, "Yeah, I heard you guys." He said, "Y'all had me cracking up talking about that cheese and stuff." He said, "Brought back memories."
Oh yeah,
I ran into a lot of people who could relate to that cereal. I mean, that cheese and stuff.
Cheese is the best in grits, man. Grits and eggs.
Yeah.
Oh yes, brother. Oh yes.
You don't have cheese in your grits?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say.
I don't remember putting the government cheese in my grits.
Come on, Doc.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe
I did. I don't remember that.
No, you would remember if you did.
You sure would.
Okay.
I think I got a piece still in my freezer.
Oh man!
Well, I guess before we go any further, Pastor Haza, will you by blessing us, maybe warm our hearts and minds, because it's cold out there this morning.
Yes, it is.
Yes. Father God, we bless you, we honor you, we thank you for your grace, for your mercy, omnipotence, omniscience, and omnipresence, and we're just grateful for life. And in the midst of all, Father, keep us safe, continue to lead and guide us, order our steps, be glorified in and through all that's said and done. We'll be careful to give you the praise, give you the glory, to give you the honor, and we count these things as done in the matchless name of your Son, Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Again, you're listening to At the Round Table with Manuel. The calling number here is 617-282-0685. 617-282-0685 is the calling number. We want to thank our sponsor, Guaranteed Rate Mortgage Company. For all your mortgage needs, give branch manager Cora Holbrook a call at area code 781-342-0252. Guaranteed Mortgage is located at 75 State Street in downtown Boston, Mass. Guaranteed Rate Mortgage Company, guaranteed to exceed your expectations. As a matter of fact, our guest Cora will be in. Dr. Bradley knows at 8:00 in the 8:00 hour with the guests. Actually, and we're going to be talking about a subject there that doesn't get enough attention is human trafficking. And so actually a retired detective, Renee Callender, is going to be calling in. She actually retired working at a human trafficking.
Oh, did she?
For BPD.
Oh, okay.
So she's gonna get
I didn't even know we had. Well, actually, it's been a while since I've been on, but I'm glad to hear that we have something like that.
We do.
In fact, that was one of my concerns when my child decided to go to Howard. While I definitely embraced the idea of black universities and black colleges, Washington D.C. is known for one of those for that issue down in D.C. And so that was one of the things that Erica and I looked at when she made her decision. Yeah. We went on a college tour where we visit a few colleges as far as west as Pittsburgh. Yeah. And we drove and had so to give us an opportunity to actually talk to her. So we had a pretty much a family trip. Went all up and down the eastern seaboard, and then we visited Howard, and she fell in love with it. She fell absolutely in love with it, and she ended up graduating, got a degree in international business, but doing working computer security now. But that was a concern. She was young. She was like 16, going on 17 years old. She got out of high school early, and I was like, honey, I'm not sure about that. We're both cops. And we both knew that human trafficking was a big, especially young black girls in D.C. That was a real problem.
Absolutely.
So, but God is good. He protected her. We were very particular about who picked her up and how she got to the airport and get home and so on and so forth. So we were there. But it's a real problem.
It's a huge concern, and with the attorney that's coming on, it's a lot more prevalent as well for people who are here illegally, right? That gets exploited because
they can't report it.
They're afraid to report it because they tell them you're going to be deported, or they've gotten financially invested in this person, and they're saying you got to pay this money back. So
what's the reason why? I guess it's a question that I would ask Offset, obviously, when he comes in. What is the undercurrent rationale or purpose or reason for human trafficking? What do they use for? I know the answer, but I think people need to understand that they're seen as money.
They're not victimless crimes. I think some people feel like there's this transaction. So I told the person that participates in it is a bigger problem as the person that is exploiting them, because when you're saying there and justifying your own emotional needs, knowing that this person and just looking, and a lot of times it's this young person's face and just ignoring that. For
I think if people may not understand the definition of it, I mean, it could be something, you know what I mean?
Could be your child.
It could be your child, exactly.
Yeah, and it's not just women. I think people a lot of times when they think about human trafficking, they just think about women and prostitution. It's not just women. It's more
of them, but more women, but men are also. And stolen off the street and put into this servitude type situation.
Absolutely. And we want to say hearty good morning to our avid listeners there. I want to say good morning to Brother Jamal Crawford. Hope he's feeling better this week, as well as Mr. and Mrs. Harry Scales. I said good morning to Sister Denise Reed. She called me the other day. We had a conversation for a few minutes, trying to get her back in the studio here. To do a visit with us, cameo. Now, say good morning to our sister there. Say good morning to our brother Cliff, who called in. We hadn't heard from him till last week, so it was nice to actually reconnect with him. Said, folks, it's funny because I run into people just as you do, Dr. Bradley. I listen to the show, and like, oh wow, and so. I'm just afraid to call in. I'm like, call in. I told him we don't bite unless Cora brings food, and he don't worry about Dr. Bradley.
But you have to worry about me biting them. I mean, me biting some food. Well, we going to Indiana today?
Oh, hey, here we go.
Oh my God, boy, Gary, Indiana. Huh? Yeah, my brother William Bridgeforth. We want to say hello to my brother William Bridgeforth.
Good morning, Brother Bridgeforth. We do it the right way. We are going back to Indiana. Here we come.
Yeah.
Here we come. Also want to say good morning to Mr. T. Michael Thomas. And folks, if you want to help support the People's Academy, give your representatives a call. At the State House, the number is 617-722-2000. That's 617-722-2000. And at City Hall, the number is 617-635-4500. At City Hall, the City Council, 617-635-4500. And at the federal level, our senators and our congresspeople, the area code's 202-226-8000. That's area code 202-226-8000. That's in the nation's capital. I know you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was lying in bed the other morning, just contemplating what I was going to do for today and doing my prayers. I look up, I'm on watching Channel 4, and who do I see on Channel 4? T. Michael Thomas, and the guy doing a review of the People's Academy and talking about triggers, trade, not triggers, in the program. And I saw T. Michael Thomas walking through his house. It was a nice little display. It was really ironic because we had just talked about this expose, for lack of a better term, or this acknowledgement of another trade type organization that a white guy was putting on, and the news media jumped all over it. And then I said, well, why can't Michael Thomas get the same exposure? But he did.
Good.
He got. I don't know. I didn't see the entire interview.
Yeah.
I kind of looked at the very tail end of it, but it was a pretty good clip on what he's doing and how well and how dedicated he is to what he's doing.
Well, we're hoping that if people will start to. We have to. There was a press conference this past week at Reverend Gruber's church there. With community folks, about the violence in the city and the need for the clergy to really get back together and to lead the flock, and trying to quell this, but also showing that they're working together, because I think it's a big start in the right direction of getting folks to see that churches aren't just open on Sunday, and a lot of times these mega churches. I don't see them. If they're out there doing the work, it's not being visible, because I don't see them out there, in a meaningful way, having an impact in the community. So hopefully this will be the start of getting them back working in a collective way. But also wanted to say a thank you and a well done. Last night, Mamleo had a gala there celebrating Black History Month. President Dr. Jeffrey Lopes, his Vice President Louis Angelos, and the Mamleo board and their committee put together a nice little get together. In fact, it was catered by Slades, so it was really well attended. Some really good connections. Saw some folks in the room that I hadn't seen in a while. Some retirees. But what they had, matter of fact, I meant to take a picture. They had all of the past presidents' pictures displayed out there.
Really?
You look like you were 12 years old. I have to get, because someone took pictures, but yeah, they had all the former presidents along the back wall there. It was really, really nice when you walk in and you see that, and then it gives you that look back into all the folks who have really dedicated their time, because the folks don't realize is that the head of Mamleo does not get a salary.
No, he doesn't. No, we don't. So that was at
Mamleo's headquarters.
At Mamleo's headquarters, they had it. Okay.
Yeah, you probably got the email. Probably.
I don't recall getting it, but that's okay.
Make sure that
it doesn't. I probably got it. To be honest with you, I'm so busy I didn't really see it.
Yeah.
But so there's no slack on them at all.
Yeah.
I put it on me.
But it was really.
But I'm glad to hear that we had it.
Yeah, and the gala's coming up. The information will get that out there.
I know. I got that.
Okay.
I got that one. I mean, so I was thinking like, wait a second, that's the one at in Randolph.
The Venetian. Yes. The Venetian.
The Venetians.
Yeah.
So you
no, not rent. This is going to be at the Venetian in Dorchester there, right off the
harbor.
Yeah.
So the one
Valencia.
that we had,
Venetius.
Yeah. So the one that you had last night was at the headquarters
At
of Mamleo.
Mamleo headquarters.
So I didn't get that one.
This was.
I don't remember getting that one,
history.
but the one that's actually with the Venetians, Eric and I, we will be at that one by the grace of God.
Yeah.
When is that again?
In fact, I'm going to pull up
Is it March 25th?
Yeah, no, it's April.
April?
Yeah, it's in April. In fact, Dr. Brad's going to find it. But also, I want to talk about this morning, Black History Month. So this is how folks in Upland, California, I don't know if you guys have seen this, the black students there, it's a predominantly white community, so receive racist cards. Upland, California, it's a lesson in bigotry no one should have to learn as a child, but parents of several black sixth graders, folks, keep this in mind. At Pepper Tree Elementary in Upland said their kids had been the targets of racial bullying. They told Fox 11 a group of 5 or 6 schoolmates handed out handwritten and hand-drawn cards calling them my favorite monkey, or in one case, a cotton picker, and promising the group would be nice for them for Black History Month. Rome Douglas said his daughter got a card reading, "You're my favorite slave," with a depiction of a slave hanging from a tree. He said his daughter is only 12 years old, and her twin brother has also been taunted with the monkey sounds. Douglas said the racial bullying has been going on for about 2 weeks and started when a group of 6th graders told her they'd give her a back rub for Black History Month. Then one of the girls chimed in, "Well, you're only half black, so maybe only half the month," Douglas said, adding it had gotten so bad his twins were seeking refuge in the teacher's classroom during recess. He's now keeping them home. It's no longer seems safe, he said. According to Douglas, teachers were aware of the harassment. Now he said he wants better training. This past Friday, Upland Unified School Board of Education President Sherman Garnett posted a video in which he promised the district has a zero tolerance policy for this behavior and said the district was following state rules for discipline. Recently, racially insensitive, unacceptable incidents have been taking place at our schools, Garner said. We deeply regret the hurt that this behavior has caused for our family and community. They need to define those terms, said Robin Allen, the PTA president. She says she wants to know that what the district means by zero tolerance. So this is 6-year-olds, right? So I saw this on a news station, and you could clearly see that these cards had to be helped by some adult helping their kids to write these cards. You know, you're my favorite monkey, my favorite happy Black History Month, to my favorite cotton picker, in the depiction of a slave being hung. That's where we are in this country. That's where we are in this country, Dr. Bradley.
Well, you know, I'm sitting back here, Larry, and I'm just saying to myself, my God, when is this going to stop? You know, because number one, these are children. Mm-hmm. That was learned someplace, taught by someone to these babies, and they're perpetuating the nonsense, and it is manifesting itself in their behavior. And so while the district would say training, oftentimes we use training as a fallback for cultural changing. We need to change that whole idea, the culture around, you know, that particular piece, and how it's so easy to actually put that out there with absolutely no concern at all on behalf of the children or the parent, and no ramifications for the parents. That was taught someplace, you know, and we need to deal with the parents as well.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Your point is well taken. That's what I said. At that young age, that's a learned behavior, right? You don't know to connect Black history with that type of inflammatory and racist.
Half Black, so half of the month. You know, kids, you know what I mean? Kids are, those minds are being tainted and contaminated with this filth. Right. You know what I mean? And so we need to get to the point of who are the people who are teaching these babies this nonsense. Right. That's how I see it.
No,
it's to say, well, training is often used as a metaphor, you know, a panacea to all our problems. Right. No, you need to change the culture. The culture should not be receptive to something like this, and the parents should be involved. You know, should be held responsible for it.
Yeah. So let's hear.
Students received racist cards from other children. They say they're outraged at an increasing number of racist incidents like this and bullying.
Christy Fajardo live with that story tonight. Christy.
Yeah, Alex and Marla, so many parents are upset that they are expected to pack a Board of Education meeting here, which is supposed to get underway in about half an hour. They tell us they are heartbroken that the victims were children and so were allegedly the perpetrators. It's a lesson about bigotry no one should have to learn as a child. Parents tell us several Black students at Peppertree Elementary received these cards from a group of 6th graders, calling them their favorite cotton picker or monkey, and telling them the group would be nice to them for Black History Month.
They had one for my daughter specifically that had a slave on it. You're my favorite slave, hanging from a tree.
Rome Douglas says his 6th grade twins started experiencing racial bullying at the beginning of February. He says his son has been taunted with monkey sounds, and his daughter was also told she'd get back rubs to commemorate Black History Month.
One of the girls chimed in and said, well, you're only half Black, so maybe only half the month.
He tells us things got so bad, his twins started seeking refuge in a teacher's classroom during recess. And he has since learned other Black students were also targeted by the same group.
Right now, they are not attending because we want to ensure their safety, and we don't know. I mean, to have to take refuge in a classroom doesn't seem safe.
Recent racially insensitive, unacceptable incidents have taken place in our schools. We deeply regret the hurt that this behavior has caused our students, families, and our community.
That was the Upland Unified Board president in a video message this past Friday, vowing the district has zero tolerance for this behavior and adding it's following state laws on discipline. But PTA President Robin Allen and others are outraged it took 2 weeks before the district notified them.
are the disciplines that you're administering, are they enough to deter the kids or rehabilitate the kids and have them move forward to be, and promote a healthy school environment?
For now, Douglas doesn't know when his twins will be back at Pepper Tree and says he's heartbroken. The school has failed at teaching respect and humanity.
I grew up in neighboring Claremont. I never experienced anything like that.
So there you have it, folks. It's really sad because when you look at what you just heard, right, and then you see in this country you have states like Florida who don't want people who want a woke culture, right? You never hear them weighing in on these things, right, about why it's important to people understanding history and why a white young teen would go into a supermarket up in Albany, New York, and gun down black people, right? Because this is a learned behavior, right? We're indoctrinating people that this is what the enemy looks like. It looks like you and I, Dr. Brown.
Yes.
And it's frustrating.
It's very frustrating, and I'm almost lost for words. And for someone who's as loquacious as I am, tends to be never lost for words. But in a situation like this is particularly dangerous, especially in today's society with all the technology that we have. When we were kids, it took a while for something like this to permeate the entire society. Right. Today, it's easy. Right. It's a press of a button, everybody knows.
Exactly.
We all know what's going on.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so the fact that the district took 2 weeks to do any kind of discipline tells me, as a former working in the school administration, that the district, itself owns some of this. You know what I mean? At some point, they condoned some of this.
Or ignored it.
Or ignored it. Exactly. Yeah. And so, again, it falls back down to the culture because the kids are doing what they are allowed to do.
Right.
It's just that. For me, it's just that simple.
So, Dr. Bradley, bring this home for me. What about the parents, right? Because there's no way you can tell me that these kids got together and decided and that none of their parents knew that this isn't language that's taking place in their homes and in their environment, right? At that age, this isn't something that you can come up with. I mean, none of these kids are creative, but an adult sanctioned this behavior.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just as a parent raising 5 children. At some point that conversation would hit the table. And Eric and I, we dealt with it as we don't allow that kind of conversation, that typing. These are people. And so when my children came out to have, selected their friends, we made it very clear. We don't really care,
right?
If the color of the person's skin, as long as they treat you right, as long as they're fair to you, as long as they respect you, we're fine with it because we all belong to one race, Homo sapien, and we're all human. This whole race thing is a false construct for the purpose of greed, and so we have to teach that side of the argument to our children, so they will not perpetuate this stuff into the future.
But how does that work when we have our leaders and nationally and
it
local,
doesn't work.
Right?
It's very hard.
Succeed from the government, right?
Yes.
We don't want to understand the culture of how we got here, right? And that these are real. So we don't need to teach our kids about that. But yet, then there's no correction. I haven't heard one of these same people, and I know they're aware of this, saying, "Hey, this is not appropriate. This is not acceptable behavior," right?
Well, I think it's also the backroom conversations like you have the Margaret Taylor Greens, and I have a dislike for this person. Don't know her. I have a dislike for what she's doing.
Right.
And she will say things that are ridiculous.
Well, she's saying the quiet part out loud.
Yeah, exactly. But in the back room, you have people there supporting her, and they pretend to say the right thing, and like the old song that my wife and I heard last night, "Smiling faces, beware."
Right. Sometimes, right? You're right.
You got to be careful about those smiling faces because they'll do you some harm. They're closest to you.
Yeah.
But we need to push back with another narrative. The narrative of peace, the narrative of love, the narrative of we're all God's children.
Yeah.
And as a man of Christ, I can't hate that temple because the temple happens to be a different color than me. But God lives in us all.
Right. But these kids become adults with that mentality. Let's get our call. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the roundtable.
Hey, good morning, y'all. How you doing?
Good. First of all, how you feeling, my brother?
Jamal,
hope you're feeling better.
Oh man, I'm still in the mud.
Okay.
I don't even know if I'm gonna still make it tomorrow.
All
I've
right.
never been
Well,
this sick
just
that long in my life.
Right. Just let me know, brother. I got you.
Well, brother, listen, brother. Before you get started, I just want to thank you again for that book. I'm really enjoying it. It's a very good read.
Yeah.
Give thanks. I was, in my studies of police, and I challenge everybody out there who calls themselves an activist or, police reform or whatever. You can't be into this thing if you yourself don't study it, right?
Yeah.
So I find books about subjects that I'm interested in. If you was a kid and you was in the Superman, you get every Superman comic,
You sure
right?
do, right.
And the toys and the this and the that. Well, I'm into this thing called policing. I find it a fascinating subject historically and practically. And so, therefore, I get this type of stuff. And my concern is that some of the people who are in these rooms talking these things, if they are not on that same quest, I can't say, oh, y'all didn't know about this, because I just found out about it myself a couple months ago when I turned y'all on. Right?
Well, but to that point, this is why, it's hard when I see some of these folks in positions that have anything to do with that, and I know their knowledge of the subject matter is very limited. It's hard to take serious that you really have people who commit. I'm not saying that people can't learn, but I don't think when you're in your title as senior advisor in these positions, and you should maybe be the junior advisor, it doesn't bode well that you are someone who, when you're sitting in a room with people who have more experience in the field than you have on the earth, it's hard to take serious.
Well, not for nothing. Some of these people shouldn't even be advisors. They should be administrative assistants. You can help get the job done, take some notes, send out the emails, put it on social media or whatever.
And work
but in
your
order
way
to
up
be
to
an advisor, that you need to have something to give.
Well, right, but that says something about though. If the mayor is appointing them to this position, it says something about leadership too. Honestly, because if you're getting advice from people who you get just based on their age and life experience, probably aren't advising you well, and we wonder why we have the situation the way it is. But
well, what I can tell you though, too, one thing the woke culture did is LinkedIn is a hell of a drug.
Okay.
So people, if you go to their LinkedIn or whatever, you would think that these people are candidates for the Nobel Prize, right? But what happens is in the real life, the rubber don't really meet the road like that. So these people can have a resume that looks really good, but it just doesn't match up in the real world.
Right.
They can't deliver.
Right.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Jamal, I want to get your take on what we were
Actually, before you do that,
I'm
I'm just giving some historical fact that would be very helpful. And Jamal may already know this, but I want to just point back to 1739. It was a rebellion that actually prompted South Carolina legislature to actually create the slave patrol, and that rebellion name was Stono Rebellion. It happened. It's right down by. It happened near the Stono River, which is very close to Charleston, South Carolina, and the individuals in that rebellion were trying to get to the south, which was trying to get to Florida, because at that time Florida was owned by Spain, and it was seen as the Underground Railroad flowing south.
Okay.
All right. So the Stono Rebellion gave the South Carolina legislature the impetus, the rationale to actually financially support slave patrol. That is a key piece. As a lot of people don't know about the Stono Rebellion, it was in 1739.
Educating me here.
It was 1739, September the 9th of 1739.
Okay.
No.
That's important history. But this is what I'm saying. This is why folks they don't want to know about the 1619 project. They don't want to learn about real black history, right? Not that just the peaceful protests they want. Martin Luther King, things of that nature. And even that they see as dangerous. That should not be talked about. We should get over it. How can you get over it when, again, what we're just talking about? These are kids today.
America won't allow you to get over it, brother.
Right, replicating it. We're starting it all over. We're indoctrinating our kids into this. So Jamal, again, want to get your take on this, sir.
Okay, so it's multifaceted. So one, I actually like when incidents like this happen because it shows and proves the failure of integration. Black children are better educated in an environment with other black children or people of color and with teachers of color. Okay, because I think Malcolm X says only a fool, would allow your enemy to educate your children. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So what we have is we are often sending our children into these hostile environments, not doing a bunch of research. We do the little Google and says, oh, this school is great. Okay, K through 8 or whatever. But there's no real way to investigate the racial animus and turmoil that may or may not be going on there. But if you're smart, you can pretty much assume it exists. And let me use myself as an example. My mother busted her butt growing up, to put me through all these schools. Poor woman, I wasted so much of her money because I got kicked out of all of them. But she sent me to all these private schools because in her mind, she knew I was smart, and she wanted me to send me to the best schools. The problem is that in her mind, best was synonymous with white. So I went to all the white private schools, and yeah, they were great, great education and all that. But the other side of it, what I had to go through, and see, for instance, like what he was talking about, his kids, took refuge in the teacher's room. Yeah, no, we don't do that. What we do is, you remember the little compass they gave you with the pencil?
Yes.
Yeah. We use that.
Okay.
No, you'll get stuck. Okay? So I remember one time, I'm lucky I didn't get kicked out of school that time, but a white kid was tormenting me, and the metal afro pick. Yeah. So I tried to stab him in his neck with that pick. Thank God it didn't go through, because I'd probably just be getting out of jail now. Right? But this type of thing, there was a fight or flight thing that used to exist. For my generation, we just didn't play that. We're not going to be tortured and tormented and bullied and da-da-da-da, and we even help out other kids. So for this parent, that's a heck of a thing when you, in good faith, send your child to be educated, and instead you are paying, or maybe not paying, I don't know what the situation is there, for your child to get tormented and tortured.
Right.
What we need to be looking at is having our own schools with our own education, and we ain't got to worry about what Rick DeSantis doesn't want them to know, the alphabet, or whatever. We need to concentrate on getting back to like we used to, Saturday schools, free schools, liberation schools, so that we could supplement whatever crappy education we're going to get from this educational system. Because even the greatest educational institutions at this point are still turning out a substandard process.
Well, I would also add, I concur with Jamal on this, as I usually do, because I like the way you think through these things. I'll also add that, and I will caution him that we do have our issues internally. We call it colorism. That could be a problem. But it's easier to deal with that when you're not dealing with all the other mess that comes on from this group that deems to be the leading group of society. It's easier for us to deal with that issue because that's coming from the leader group as well. So I do think, we strive so hard to be considered Americans. So we have to relinquish our individuality, our culture, to become inculcated or amalgamated into an overall society.
So what I hear you gentlemen saying is, I you can put me in that column, is I've never aspired to be accepted in that culture, right? I've never aspired to have that acknowledgement from the other. So I think once you get past wanting that or needing that, right? Because a lot of times, like we bus our kids, a lot of people in that live in the city that can get their kids into the medical system, right? We feel like that is the alternative to a system that is showing it's failing our kids and failing them miserably. So we buy into that, right?
Yeah, but what are we saying?
At what cost?
Yeah, but what are we saying? Yeah, at what cost? Or what are we saying to the child that we're moving out to the various different white schools, as Jamal said, because our parents and my parents had the same thing. My mother used to always say, you want the very best of everything, go to where the white folks shop. Go to where the white folks buy the stuff. So we are white is, is associated with, synonymous with, good, that's the message being perpetuated, being pushed, It's just a sad situation. So I do agree with him on the issue that this is what this is what this whole thing around segregation, integration gets us as opposed to segregation.
Well, we're adopting that, and want to explore that a little further. Want to bring this other call in. Jamal, stand by. I want to bring this other call in. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the roundtable.
Good morning, Larry. Pardon me. I just wanted to chime in on that.
Called the wrong number.
Yes, I did.
Yes.
No, but I definitely want to chime in on the fact that the fact that the educational system in this country is like an indoctrination.
Yeah.
Because they don't actually teach you to think. They teach you how to follow orders, how to do what you're told, wait in line, wait your turn, raise your hand. Because in a lot of other countries, the European countries, they don't even give them homework. They allow the child or the person to develop, and they have a way where they're actually working to develop you as an individual with a holistic approach.
Yeah.
So the education that you have in this country is not really education because, again, it was based upon us being slaves, and now, okay, we're going to give them education. How are we going to educate them? And it's like, are they... I don't know. Was it Invisible Man or Ralph? One of the books.
Ralph Ellison, The Invisible Man.
Yeah, and he said he was wondering: are they lifting the veil or keeping the veil over us, depending on how you look at the statue and everything like that?
Right. Well,
you can't.
Go ahead. Finish it. Just finish.
No,
it.
it's like you really can't tell. But again, the idea is like people aren't against the education. It's the government that's preventing us from, the whole. They're the ones blocking the education. People are for this education, and then we have the great, I think, equalizer is the fact that we do have the internet. Unfortunately, a lot of lies out there, but the truth can be found if people are seeking it.
Well, to your point, because Jamal, when he said something, it made me think about going back to my early childhood. Right, is that when I went to school, my school was 5 minutes away from my house, and I felt like I was being well. And then busing started, and then my older siblings, 3 of them did not finish school. When they were doing well in their high schools, right, before busing came along, right? And then they were bused to South Boston and their education declined. That this was supposed to better educate us, and actually it had just the opposite where you saw more kids dropping out of these schools. But when we were in schools in our own neighborhoods, we were fine. I mean, I enjoyed walking to my local school.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that was the impetus behind busing because you were doing fine in those schools in your neighborhood, and put you in other environments where you had to fight to get out of there, will actually reduce the quality of education or your attentiveness to education.
Right.
That's just in my mind, that was the calculate. That's how they calculated it. To be very honest with you.
And I'd like to share an experience that I have with busing.
Mm-hmm.
I was
brother, could you just say who you are? Because I didn't catch your name.
Rhodes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Rhodes Pierre.
Yeah.
Oh,
peace. How you doing?
Yeah, how you doing? Hey, Jamal. So bottom line is, my experience with busing was the fact that they would take us from Mattapan, bring us to Rosendale, and it was the 2nd grade and 3rd grade at the time. And basically they would take a classroom and bring it to the other school with the people protesting outside or whatever as we're driving through in the school bus. But literally we had separate entrance, separate recess, separate lunch. So it's like although we were supposed to be integrated and supposed to be interacting, the way they set up the schedule with the busing, we never actually interacted, never had an assembly, never actually, even talked to the other students, the white kids in the school.
Well,
That's my experience with busing.
Right. Well, to that point, I look now, in my time in South Boston in middle school and in high school, and that our kids today don't have that same experience. It's not as bad. It's not saying it's gone away, but it's not. You could not walk. There was not even an imaginary. Almost, we had borders, right? Not just at the Mexico border and in Canada. We had borders where you didn't go if you were black. You didn't go over to Carson Beach. You didn't go past JFK Station, right? There were, you didn't go down to Andrews Station, and there was certain, so there were already borders up there, and you knew, you just didn't cross, and no one really explained why you didn't. You were told, hey, you don't go back, you're gonna get hurt.
No, I remember as a kid they would say, don't go to South Boston.
Right, exactly. Don't go to South Boston. It was like saying don't go into Russia. But I look now, and that you can walk into any of these schools, but the education has declined to where we saw a white flight, as they said back then, to kids going to their kids, or they're moving out of the city, and the lack of education that was taking place. And we're looking at it today. Well, that's not an issue, but the educational piece hasn't improved. As a matter of fact, there was an article in last week's Globes that says that there's been no improvement since the state has talked about receivership of the education here. And if you look at the makeup of the school system in Boston, it's somewhere north of 90% black and brown. right? Now, people are saying that the population in Boston is changing, and folks are going to get tired of paying high costs for homes and rent and then have to put their kids in private school. They're dealing with that right now, or they can get their kids into Metco, but that's going to stop.
Well, and I'm going to go back to this, and the monster here is gentrification. Mm-hmm. That is the monster. And using my economic power to perpetuate my racism. I don't want these people. Hear me. I don't want these individuals to be in the communities, living in these houses in Boston. So I make them very expensive, move them out, and once I get a certain demographic in place, the quality of education will change.
See, this is what you finished. What I was going to say is that we're reversing course here, right? Exactly. The folks who fled are now coming back, but they're demanding on their return that we have safer streets, we have education that's better.
Larry, in my opinion, there is no reason why the majority of the Boston public school systems can't be like Latin and O'Brien.
Not with a $1.4 billion budget.
That's my point. I mean, so money is not the issue. Money is not the issue. Yeah. I mean, the issue here is that it's that they have chosen, in my opinion, they have chosen certain schools to be the way that they are in the condition that they're in until a certain demographics move into the city, and then all that stuff is going to watch it. So, and I give it another 5 to 10 years, you'll see the difference.
So, Jamal, I want to pose this question to you and to Rhodes as well, but I want to get your take on it first. So, what part does the parenting take place in this? Because what you just elaborated on how your mom thought that was going to get you a better education by putting you in these all schools, she was willing to pay for it. I don't see an effort in a lot of instances where parents are plugged into that most important part of getting their children educated. Like they're leaving it all up to a system that they know has failed their children. How do we justify that?
Well, okay, so, a lot of that depends on the individual kid. You know what I mean? So for me...
But let me just... So you're saying it depends on the individual kid. My point is, what role do the parents... Because I think that's a huge missing piece of the parental... Like what your mom was doing, what my mom I know did, I'm sure Rhodes, because I can see how he turned out, saying with Dr. Bradley, is that our parents were invested in our education. I'm not seeing much of that now.
Yeah, you're right. But what I'm saying is my mother's investment basically... stopped at the paycheck. Okay. You know what I mean? She cut the check. She wasn't invested in really what was going on in the school, really didn't have any knowledge of what I was studying or none of that. And our only interaction about school was basically my bad behavior. You know what I mean? All the fights and teachers and da-da-da-da. Like I said, got kicked out of every school. So for me, what was crazy is, okay, as much as I got kicked out, I got all A's and B's, aced every test, read every book before it was, they say, oh, read this book by next month, I'd be done in a week, that type of thing. So that was never the issue. And for the teachers, they didn't even have to tell me to read a book. If you left me alone in a room with books, I'm going to read them, So it was weird. That was the type of kid I was. Other kids need more of a push and a prompt to be encouraged to study, or what have you. I think one of the biggest problems that happened with integration, busing, I got another joke, but Pastor Wall had a similar experience back in the day when they began the stagecoach program. They started stagecoaching kids to other schools.
You know this is recorded, but go ahead.
But for real, what happened is the breakdown back in the day. Black kids, black teachers, your teacher looked like your mama or your auntie. And the relationship was that there was more respect. You wasn't going to dare cuss no teacher out, smack no teacher upside the head. Yeah. You know what I mean? And the teacher had a more loving aspect as you. Oh, come here, little Larry. Oh, what? This is back in the day, and not to say it doesn't exist now because we have a lot of great teachers out there. But, teachers who would give a kid half of their sandwich or, these type of things.
But a lot of those things today are frowned on, like, touching, that interaction, that human touch, and those things, or I can't give this kid because I don't know if they have an allergy, so you can't do a lot of those things and all of that stuff. And of course, because now society, why can't people hug kids? Because
Mr. Wilson over there be hugging all the little young girls or the little young boys. So, of course, now, because society is so damaged, we've had to create all these rules, and we've got to. School used to be a much more relationship and familial-based place.
Yeah.
When it began to get, what I'm going to say, industrialized, and now you got, 1,000 kids in the school, it's very difficult to maintain that personal touch. And when you have teachers from another culture that don't have that familiarity, they don't view these kids in many cases as their son, their nieces, their nephews, and in many cases they view these kids as a problem.
Right.
So and going to school is not, I can't wait to go inspire kids today. It's like, boy, these little stinkers, So that type of attitude came in, and then there was an animosity that developed between the kids and the teachers and the kids, the parents. Hey, don't you be talking to my kid like that. So there's a lot of stuff in the mix now that has to, in my view, get deconstructed. And my last point is, can you imagine if Black Boston had an independent black school that focused on excellence? So instead of Boston Latin, let's say we had Boston African that was a high-achieving, all black controlled, Afrocentric, black studies curriculum school with a high focus on STEM, and we would be killing the game.
Right. So to your point, because I want to throw this at Rhodes, because Rhodes, your family immigrated here from Haiti. I think you probably would say one of the first education was something that was really valued for your family coming here. Talk about that and how that difference from what you saw with kids who were here who had that opportunity right there and just didn't understand that it's not like that all over the world. And
very, very true. Thank you for bringing that up. The fact is, my dad and my mom would always say that you don't understand. You get to go to school free here in this country. It's like in my country, all the schools pretty much were private. There are no such thing as public schools. And basically the poor kids are there, poor, miseducated, mistreated, and they're cast out for life.
Wow.
And just being able to read. Remember, when we were slaves, it was illegal for us to know how to read. They would kill you if you knew how to read. So they don't want you to have knowledge, okay? Just figure that part out. So again, based on the fact that we came from Haiti and we immigrated here, our parents definitely were more involved with our education. As he said, they sat down and did homework with us when we were younger, but as we got older, they just expected A's and B's, and if you didn't bring the grades home, they got upset, and they would let you know. They didn't want to deal with any behavior issues. And again, they're parents and they're adults, so they have to pay the bills, keep the roof on the house. So they really weren't that focused on even things like developing extracurricular activities and making sure that you're developing completely as a student, as a person. It was like them. No, just go home, just go to school, do your homework, come home, and do your chores, and that's about it and stuff like that. I mean, later on, we're allowed to get involved with sports and things of that nature, but they really valued the education. And one of the reasons that we ended up going to, they even thought that it's better to go to private education as opposed to, keep going to public school. They were kind of upset that they're like that. My older brother had a learning disability, so he just went to public school. But myself, I ended up going to private school. And they were like, well, in private schools, the more kids you have, the cheaper it is. Technically, you have a base fee, and then every other kid you add, it's a little cheaper to have that kid on there. But that being said,
go
ahead.
No, finish your thought.
I was going to say, that being said, is that the fact that it's there are two different dynamics as far as parents. My parents came from a place where they're like, no, we didn't have access to this, so they really valued it, and they put an emphasis on take advantage of this, and make sure that you're doing your work, and that we expect something out of it.
So I was not aware that Dr. Brown's going to weigh in. I just want to ask. I was not aware that education was not free in Haiti. And that's my ignorance.
Well, actually, education was not free in Haiti, but it was also denied in America, especially the southern part of America, where it was free. But it depends on when you were actually born, when you were alive, because my parents were not educated. My parents were forbidden to have education, so my mother valued it, and she made sure that we were moved into an area where we can get it. and quality. So I mean, I literally, when you look at my history, my history literally comes from the cotton field to a PhD.
Wow.
Because my parents were cotton pickers,
Right.
sharecroppers, but I'm a PhD.
Right.
And that because someone in my family, my mother, said we're moving from this area, we're migrating to this area, not because it's better, as it relates to the weather,
More opportunity,
but it's more opportunity for my children to get an education, and my grandchildren. So I have, I just spoke to my daughter about this, who's a dean at Harvard. You standing on these shoulders, and the shoulder that your father stands on are shoulders of people who were not allowed to, did not get it,
right. So what I'm taking from this conversation is that folks like us are the first generation to build that home ownership, education at a level that our parents weren't, because you're right, they didn't have access to it, and it was in a lot of instances it was illegal for as Rose alluded to. So Rose, because before I want to jump back to Jamal, get his response to what you said. Is it still that way in Haiti now that there is no public education in Haiti?
No, yeah, you literally, if you do not have money, you're not going to school. You're a poor child. You're sitting there begging, like hanging outside the wall of the school, and maybe other kids will like share their lessons with you or whatever. But you're frowned upon because you're poor. You can't even afford the uniform. They kind of, you're broke. You're poor. You're like, Yeah,
that's what I was going to say. You got to pay tuition, plus you got to pay for the books, plus you got to pay for.
You got to have the uniform.
Wow.
Yeah, all that. It's a full.
It's a status thing. The fact that you're going to certain schools, it's like a status that you're at that school. It's like over here, it's like Harvard is like number one as far as like the Ivy Leagues or whatever.
The kids that go to Latin Academy.
Exactly. So, and that's another thing too. I know because I went to school in Montreal. In Montreal, like the smarter kids were like the equivalent of the jocks here in America. In you weren't like in the whole idea of the bully mentality in the education system. It was not tolerated in Canada. Like it was just kind of like here. When I first came here, I knew there was a pecking order.
Right.
Like you learn that right away.
So Jamal,
I just want to say to the brother too. As you were telling your story, and I don't know how old you are, I'm 52, so I don't know what years you were growing up. But I just want to apologize on behalf of ignorant African Americans, because I know that my experience, we were not kind to the Haitian people. Not kind to the Haitian people. And boy, how ignorant and stupid we were. How we say we didn't know. The birthplace of the revolution, the pride of the Haitian people, the industriousness, the hard working. I mean, so it's funny how, as kids, we made fun of African bush boogies.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah.
The Haitians, we made fun of Jamaicans, and then I found out I was Jamaican. So all of this type of stuff.
Yeah, man.
And I would love to say that now our best hope is each other.
Well, it's funny, Jamal, that you say that, because I know we're short on time. Is that one of the things that I was so proud of at Mamleo, and that's like, I talked about this last night when we had our little Black History event at Mamleo. As I looked out into the room, we now have a president of Mamleo, a vice president, a Cape Verdean, right? Our former president of Mamleo that they replaced, Eddie Crispin, is from Haiti, right? Yeah. And that Mamleo has evolved, and really, I look out the room and I'm like, wow, that melting pot, that cultural, that's how we get better. Because Jamal said, right, we always were fighting with each other that didn't talk like us, look like us, and even amongst ourselves. Like, Dr. Bradley, you spoke to this, is that because of your skin complexion, you were harassed, you up to being too black, right? And folks like me that were a little lighter like Jamal, people embraced us a little bit more, right?
But see, the thing is that what we have to see as a people is that we're imitating what was perpetrated on us.
Exactly.
That's right. Exact thing that they did to us. We taking that model and we sitting
that
it
right.
System. Yeah, we putting that system right into our own society. Right. You know what I mean? And see, the thing is that, and as you brothers are talking, and you're talking about Haiti, Espanola, Saint Domingue, all the names that Haiti had. Haiti was the very first rebellion, and in fact, they just recently paid the slave owners in France, for the rebellion that they did actually get get their freedom. The very first slaves to get their freedom was a huge crop producing empire. But that's the history.
Right.
But what we did,
I gotta hold you there because I want to pick this up in our 9 o'clock hour because we've got about 30 seconds before we are going to be pulled off the air. Gentlemen, this has been so stimulating. We're going to pick this up in our 9 o'clock hour because we have guests coming in at 8 o'clock hour.
All back.
We're talking about human trafficking. Yeah, I want to finish it because I think this definitely needs more exploration. And I tell you, it has excited me this morning. This history lesson that I'm getting from Rose and Jamal and from Dr. Bradley. This is why we have some of the best listeners in the country.
Amen.
It's because of this education. Gentlemen, thank you. And if you are available, please call back at 9 o'clock. But listen in our 8 o'clock hour, we're going to have folks in here talking about human trafficking and actually the exploitation of people from other countries and why they're easily exploited in that part, in that manufacturing of human trafficking because of the lack of connection.
And Larry taking the lead on that. I'm going to relinquish my seat to one of the people who
as soon as the food gets here. And you hear that crunching, that's Dr. Bradley. Gentlemen, thank you. You've been listening to At the Round Table with me. We'll be right back. You ain't nothing nice.